Mchawi, and I'm a health information management major with a minor in sociology. And in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about protecting and preserving the environment. So there are different things that we're going to talk about in this video, and some of them include overpopulation, air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, radiation, and noise pollution. So, and when we're talking about these different things, we're going to discuss how they affect their environment, how we can, resolve situations such as because pollution is destroying our environment. So how do we go about making our environment better again? So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is overpopulation. So overpopulation is basically the increase in the number of population in terms of people in the world, and it's come to an extent where there's so many people in the world and there are fewer resources to take care of these people. Currently, the world population is at 7.49 billion people, and it is estimated that by the year 2100 there'll be about 11.2 billion people in the world. So how does this affect natural resources, other species? The distribution of these resources among people. Currently, we're already facing shortages in water. We're facing shortages in food supply. We're facing shortages in natural resources because all these natural resources right now they're already being used up by the world population. And in terms of fertility rates, currently fertility rates are quite high in some areas. Of course, there's been progress in reducing fertility rates in some places. For example, a lot of countries in Europe right now, their fertility rates are actually below zero, and they're trying to find ways to rejuvenate them. But in other places such as Niger in West Africa, the population is doubling at a very unprecedented rate. And there's actually an issue to The Guardian that I'm going to provide a link if you're interested in watching, which talks about how a lot of women are having a lot of children. They're having it's estimated that every woman in Niger has about 7 children. And in this scenario, we can also look at the social learning theory, where in the social learning theory, it talks about how because of people seeing what happens in their what happens in the different generations, what happens in their communities, to learn from those things and adapt them into their own life. So we can consider this in terms of the women in Niger having a lot of children because it's been something that's been done from generation to generation. They're continuing the trend of having a lot of children. So how do we go about preventing overpopulation? Birth control, child spacing, education. These are things that can actually help to reduce overpopulation because the longer a woman or people spend in school, the less the chance of them having a lot of children because education helps to delay their childbearing years. So by the time they start to actually have children, they'll have lesser children. Birth control. If birth control is widely accessed by a lot of people, who kind of do not have access to it, it will prevent unwanted pregnancies and therefore help reduce population growth. Child spacing. If families can be taught that it is important to space children, they can learn the importance of a small family, the importance of ensuring that you have resources to take care of your children. So when we talk about overpopulation, the best way that we can go about controlling it is through child spacing, birth control, and education. Air pollution. So air pollution is basically the destruction of clean air in the environment, the photochemical smogs, the pollution from your exhaust fumes from your car, exhaust fumes from nuclear power plants, from coal power plants, which are currently accumulating in the atmosphere and affecting the air that we breathe. So currently, in terms of air pollution, for example, in the United States, if we take the United States as an example, the United States has a lot of cars, a lot of automobiles. A lot of all of these automobiles, produce exhaust fumes that are actually disruptive to our environment. And if you remember from hearing about, the ozone layer depletion, chlorofluorocarbons, which were produced by machinery like refrigerators, for instance, which produce chlorofluorocarbons. So these are harmful gases which were actually disrupting the ozone layer and were actually disrupting the air. So, for instance, if we take air pollution has been one of the biggest problems that we have been facing in the 21st and the late 20th century, and it has actually led to climate change, global warming. It has contributed to these things because currently, when you talk about air pollution, we're talking about greenhouse gases that are produced by the different things in the environment, human beings, industries, animals, cars. So an example of a greenhouse gas is, I would give it to be carbon dioxide. Human beings breathe out carbon dioxide, and greenhouse gases are gases that are actually help to trap heat in the atmosphere. So if we take, for instance, that a lot of human beings, that a lot of things in the environment produce carbon dioxide. That means we're trapping heat in the atmosphere. Now, if you add in other greenhouse gases that come from the different industries that we have, from the cars that we have, and from the some of the refrigerators that we are actually leading to trapping more heat in the atmosphere. And air pollution is a big problem in some countries. For instance, in China, where you have entire massive cities which are surrounded in smog all day long, and people failing to breathe, people walking outside, and the smoke and the fumes are so like they are so massive that you can't actually see in front of you, just because of smogs that are of fumes that are coming from industries that are polluting the environment. So later on in the video, I am going to show a diagram of showing how greenhouse gases contribute to climate change, or how greenhouse gases work against the environment, to explain more about the dangers of air pollution. Another type of pollution that I'm going to talk about is water pollution. So this is basically the destruction of waterways, of water sources, by dumping in waste, fertilizers, dumping in poisonous chemicals into these water sources. So water is an important resource for human beings. A lot of literally everyone on the planet needs water. Animals need water, plants need water. And with the current environment that we're having, a lot of garbage is being dumped into water sources. For example, the Pacific Ocean is also known as a garbage dump, because a lot of chemicals, a lot of garbage is dumped into it. And sometimes pollutants, from different factories and industries are dumped into the oceans, are dumped into waterways. And this is disrupting the water sources, and this is water that we use to drink, water that we use, to feed our animals. And animals and people are dying from drinking water that has been poisoned. And agriculture has also contributed to water pollution, because a lot of fertilizers are used, to irrigate land. And these fertilizers run off into water sources, which are also destroying the land. So, for instance, we can also apply the rational choice theory in this scenario, where we talk about people, they think of how much do I need to make, how they think of the benefits and the cost of making more money, instead of thinking about how much they're disrupting their environment. For example, people who run factories may think, what, I'm just dumping. It's just a few heaps of garbage that I'm dumping into the water source. It can't be as bad as the money that I'm making. But when you look at it from a long-term perspective, you are actually destroying that water source. You are destroying a resource that is very important to the survival of human beings. So it is important as a community, we care about water pollution and ensure that we stop water pollution. And in regards to the garbage dump that is currently in the Pacific Ocean, a lot of animals have actually been, consuming of this garbage, and have died as a result of consuming plastics that are bad for their bodies, that have destroyed their bodies. Thereby, it is also destroying the ecosystem. I am going to upload some video footage of me at a concert last year, just to show you how noise pollution affects the environment. Loud, right? So that was footage of me at a concert sometime late last year, and I was actually sitting in the middle, I was in the middle pack of the concert. I was not even sitting close to the stage, but the noise from the stage was very deafening for me, and this was rock music. So this is an example of what noise pollution is bad, because here I am at a concert, even though I'm enjoying the music, but it is disruptive to my ears. And for instance, think of people, people who work at the airport, because of airplanes make a lot of noise. The engine sounds are considered, deafening for, human ears. That's why you see people that work on the ground actually wearing those earmuffs to prevent themselves from, having damaged eardrums. So I think one way of resolving this is by building airports far from the city to ensure that people who live close to the airports in the city right now are not affected, by the noise pollution that the airplanes produce. And another type of noise pollution that we can talk about is headphones. A lot of people put on headphones every day. Headphones are very damaging to our ears because that noise, that sound is at a it's very close, it's in proximity with our eardrums, and it can easily rupture our eardrums. So it is important for people to minimize their use of headphones, or if they like to use headphones, use them, interchange them. Do not use them all the time. Use them here and then spend a few days or something and not use them again, because that is another type of noise pollution that we have to deal with. And in terms of using headphones, I don't think we're at the current generation. It's not a problem that we can go about saying, oh, we're gonna ban people from using headphones. That is unlikely to happen. So the best thing we can do is just to talk to people and encourage them about making sure that their use of headphones is very minimal. And for instance, for people who go to rock concerts or who go to music concerts, that is something that would never stop, because people like to hear live music. But it is important to encourage people that whenever they go to concerts, it is maybe best to sit far from the stage, to prevent yourself from experiencing noise pollution and thereby, damaging your ears, or to minimize the times that you go to concerts. For example, if you go to concerts every weekend, you're highly likely, to damage your ears quickly because you're constantly being exposed to that very, very high sound. But if we encourage people to say, okay, when you go to a concert, make sure you sit a bit far from the stage so that you are not affected by this noise, so that it doesn't damage your ears. So noise pollution is another type of pollution that is actually gaining a lot of precedence now because of the, electronics, headphones, the accessibility to these things now is easier than it was in the past. And now air travel is one of the most affordable, ways to travel, and a lot of people, use planes now. So it is important to educate people on the importance of noise pollution and to let them know that if you can minimize your use of headphones, you can minimize your attendance of concerts. It might actually be better for you in the long term, and it might be better for the environment. So the kind of last type of pollution that I'm going to talk about is land pollution. So land pollution is just destruction of the land. The earth is 70% water and 30% land. So you have a lot of people that are currently, cutting down a lot of trees. They're, dumping garbage anyhow in the streets. It's just chaotic, to say the least. So I'm going to talk about how it is important for us, to preserve our land, because currently we're polluting land at a rate that has never been seen before. So how can we go about, making sure that we change this and, make the environment better? And another way that we're polluting land is the heavy use of fertilizers when in farming, in agriculture. Because fertilizers are being used to ensure that yields are high. It is actually changing the soil composition. It is changing the chemical composition of the soil. And this is actually affecting, for example, earthworms, animals that actually live in the ground. And it is also affecting the productivity of the crops that is being produced, because now, even though the fertilizers kind of help you to produce more yield, it is disturbing the chemical composition of the crops that are being produced. And at the same time, land pollution is actually making land barren, because right now there's some land that can no longer be used for farming, or plants can no longer grow there because it's been heavily used by fertilizers, and it can no longer be used for anything else. So it just becomes barren. It becomes a desert. And the effects of having a desert is that you no longer have those safe spaces where you have trees grow that actually act as a barrier and prevent erosion from happening during rainy seasons. So this is some of the pollution is a very big problem in our society, and it is something that we have to tackle. And another kind of thing that is very important, that is actually disrupting our environment, is radiation. So radiation is something that is coming from it can be naturally occurring, it's coming from cell phones, it's coming from different things. And the exposure that we are currently experiencing from radiation actually affects, our bodies in different ways. So how do we go about, ensuring that we're exposed to the least or minimal radiation as much as possible? So these are some of the things that I'm going to talk about in the next section, where I'm going to be talking about how we can go about protecting and preserving our environment. So for now, I'm going to go more into detail about ways that you can actually protect and preserve your environment. So the first thing that you can do is recycle. So recycle, recycle, recycle. We cannot overemphasize on the importance of recycling our materials. This includes everything from water, plastics, and paper. So, because for instance, let's start with paper. Paper is made from trees, right? So a lot of trees are cut down just to make paper for people. So if you recycle if you recycle paper, it means you're preventing a lot of trees from being cut down. So it is very important for us as a society, with our increasing population, to ensure that there are trees that are not cut down and that animal habitats are not affected. Water recycling. We're already running out of water. We've experienced serious drought in places like California and different other places. So it's important for us right now to be recycling water and making sure that we're preserving all these water resources. So recycling water. If you're using water for something just like, say, washing your car, you might use that same water to water your plants, or to wash to just to clean up your to clean up your drains or something like that. Another thing that I'm going to talk about is that we can use to preserve our environment, and this is in regards to overpopulation, is birth control and the importance of teaching people child spacing. So birth control essentially gives people the power, to determine how many children they have, when they have those children, or if to have to even if whether to decide whether they have children at all. So it is important as a society to ensure that birth control is provided to people at no cost or at the lowest cost possible, so that a lot of people do receive birth control and use it as a means of fighting overpopulation. So, other ways that you could go about protecting and preserving the environment include, education. Education is very important in literally everything that we do in life, because it is important to educate people on the importance of preserving their environment. So, if we train people on how to properly dispose waste, to train them on the importance of ensuring that we have animals, the importance of preserving our land, it'll help, in return, to make sure that our environment is safe and is taken care of. Another way that we can protect and preserve our environment is by replanting trees. So, as you know, deforestation has become a very huge problem, especially, for instance, like now the rainforest of Brazil. Some reports say, according to sources like National Geographic, that it's almost half or but a quarter of the original forest is left, which is something that should be considered as atrocious, because something as rich as the Amazon rainforest, to only have a quarter of it left, does not signal good things about the environment, and that, but us as people, our responsibility to nature, our responsibility to other species, who do not take it seriously. So it is important for us to replant trees to ensure that we're protecting the environment, to ensure the survival of other species as well. Another way that we can take care of the environment is through proper disposal of waste. So, proper disposal of waste can be carried out in different ways. When it comes to nuclear waste, you have to make sure that you're not just, dumping it in streams, or because nuclear waste is radioactive, and radiation produces poisoning, which can kill human beings, and radiation poisoning also causes cancer. So when it comes to disposing of stuff that is radioactive, such as nuclear waste, we have to ensure that we're depositing it in safe spaces, or we're depositing it in places where it will naturally degrade, and ensure that it does not affect people. So other ways that we can preserve the environment is through the use of biodegradable products. So biodegradable products are basically products that are made of natural materials, like corn. Like they're made. So an example of a biodegradable product is, for example, plastic bottles that are made from corn, something that has actually been carried out, because biodegradable products, when they degrade, they go back into the soil. They become, say, like, they become part of the soil. They become part of the nutrients that help the soil. But when we use products that are not biodegradable, for example, plastics that are made of heavy metals, they take years and years to degrade, and sometimes from what I have read, it can even take up to about 1,000 years for for plastics to fully degrade back into its natural form, which is bad for the environment because if it's taking about 1,000 years for just something to return back to nature, it means that for that entire period, it's actually being disruptive to the environment. Um, Another way that we can actually help preserve our environment is through supporting organizations that deal with environmental issues that fight for the protection of the environment. For example, currently, the current uh, demonstration is proposing cuts to the EPA. So the EPA is the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So this is an agency that is actually responsible for environmental issues that take place in the United States. So the EPA has been very instrumental in establishing the Clean Air Act, which has helped to prevent or minimize air pollution in the United States. So if we go about supporting such organizations, it will be important, and it will be important in the fight for the preservation of the environment. This part of my research, I'm just gonna talk to my supervisor, Miss Norman, to just ask her a few questions on her opinions about how we can go about preserving the environment. So, this is Miss Norman.
Hi.
So, Miss Norman, how do you think we have destroyed the environment? That should be my first question to you.
I think that humans are just wasteful in general, and our nonchalant attitude about littering and just being wasteful
Right.
has definitely negatively impacted the environment, from the air to the animals. Just everything that we have done as selfish humans has just really ruined the environment.
Right.
You think about how animals are being harmed, how we're catching all these airborne diseases just from inhaling things created by human pollution, human waste. How everything is being disposed of. We have just been environmentally irresponsible as a people.
Right. So, how do you think we can go about changing that? Making the environment better again.
Well, we would definitely have to just be more conscious about those kinds of things. Be careful with where we throw things. Like, why would you throw straws in the water? Where do you think that kind of stuff goes?
Right.
People forget we only have one unit of water, right? So it's going somewhere.
Right.
And when it goes somewhere, ask yourself, where do you think that stuff is going? It's usually going inside of animals. There are videos showing animals literally being killed and harmed and having to live with dimes and coins and straws being waste being stuck inside of their body. They're being killed by human waste because we dispose of it in water. So it's going to take a collective effort, not just by us individually, but the government is going to have to get involved and help regulate those kinds of things.
Right.
Do I have just one answer for it? No, I don't know. Right. But I think each person can start off just being responsible for yourself. We can't dictate what the next person can do, but we just individually start making better choices. And as we start making better choices for ourselves, maybe we can only hope that maybe someone else can see us being conscious, and then that person will just start passing it down. We're preparing ourselves for another generation at the end of the day.
Right.
So I have a newborn child, right? And my child is one day going to grow up and have to make sure she's doing those kinds of things, making sure she's being responsible. So I can pass that down to her to make sure that she's making the best decisions, and with hopes that everyone else is doing the same thing for their kids as well. So I just think that we need to just be responsible for ourselves and hope that we can pass it along, and the government needs to be more involved in regulating programs to help clean up what we've already done and put restrictions on those things moving forward.
Right. So in terms of, now let's bring it home to Alabama State University. Do you think students at Alabama State University care about the environment, or do they take care of it?
No, I do not think that students at Alabama State care about the environment. I grew up here in Montgomery, Alabama, and when I was coming up, I used to see Alabama State, and the campus was just beautiful. You know, I always associated good things with Alabama State University. We would ride by. I was like, dog, that, you know, it looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you drive coming into Alabama State University, in front of the sign, you know, you may see a chip bag, or, you know, you're just walking around. The campus is just dirty. I mean, at the end of the day, and I still love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's dirty. We just throw stuff anywhere. You see trash on the side of the trash can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people don't take the time to clean up behind themselves, and at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, where do you think that stuff goes?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have janitors, but sometimes it may be blown away before the janitor get there. You know, we just don't think about those things, though. So to answer your question, no, I don't think these students care.
Okay.
They don't.
So what can be done to make them care, or to let them become aware that, you know, this is your school, you're supposed to take care of it, this is your environment, it impacts, you know, the larger society, it impacts Montgomery as a whole?
Well, in all honesty, I just think someone needs to give them a real talk, you know, and this is different a little bit from the environment, but when these people come here, they feel entitled, you know. Usually the message that administration puts across to them is that, you know, we're happy to have you, which we are. Don't get me wrong, but let them know that this is a good opportunity for you to be here, you know. So somebody else could have had your spot, but because they get in and they're not told these things, they come in with a carefree attitude, like they can do whatever they want to do, you know. So just explain to them that if you continue to do these things, not just littering and making the campus look a mess, but if you just continue to do harmful things to the campus, like breaking chairs, just making the campus look bad, then you could be removed. There needs to be just to crunch words. There needs to be consequences for things like that, because it starts with a chip bag, right? And before you know it, it's starting with whole meals just being strewn around. We just had an issue where people leaving food ribs in a classroom. Like things like that. There needs to be repercussions, no matter how small it is. But they need to know that it's not acceptable, and that's going to have to come from administration. And we have to instill the importance of beautifying the campus, because eventually they're going to leave. So if the campus people bring their kids here and they see the campus looking, you know, dirty, because that's how it looks. Sometimes it looks dirty. They're not going to want to come here, which means that we're not going to have any students, which means that the university is going to close. But I don't think they think that far, because that's not told to them. So I definitely feel like there needs to be more regulation as far as that's concerned from administration. Brought down on that.
Thank you so much, Ms. Norman.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye, you guys.
In conclusion, I just want to reiterate the main points that this video was about: protecting and preserving the environment. So, you know, recycle, can never overemphasize that. Of using biodegradable products, education, birth control, avoiding polluting natural resources, animal conservation, supporting organizations that take care of the environment, such as the EPA. And I'm going to provide my sources in the description box below. I'm also going to provide a link to the Guardian article that I talked about earlier, and I'm also going to provide a link to the EPA website for those who are interested in knowing more about the EPA. And I just also want to say thank you to Ms. Norman for taking time out, you know, to be part of my research by answering some of the questions that you saw in the clip earlier. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who watches this video, and I hope that you always take care of your environment. Thank you.